And I can understand how some may talk about it that have never had to live oppression and a dictatorship. But talk to someone who has. Talk to my family who left Cuba, who left everything behind with just the clothes on their backs to come here and rebuild all over again. They didn't want to do that. They had no choice because they were suffering. They were literally going to go hungry if they didn't stay there. So I would ask those people to turn and look at the people in Venezuela that are being killed for going out and celebrating this because they have been held kidnapped for so long.
Alexa Lavoie for Rebel News, and I'm in Miami and Doral. And tonight you can see behind me there is a big celebration in order to celebrate the capture of the dictator Nicolás Maduro by the Trump administration on Saturday morning. But tonight I had the chance to speak with the mayor of Doral. Her name is Christi Fraga. She is a Cuban-American politician. She's been the mayor since 2022, and she offered us a really wonderful interview. So just before I let you see the full interview, please go over VenezuelaIsFree.com. Consider making a donation to make sure we can continue our journalism here on the ground to show you the truth. So I repeat, VenezuelaIsFree.com, and now I'll let you watch the full interview. First of all, when you heard about the action that Donald Trump led in Venezuela, how your community and yourself reacted to it?
I was happy about it. I mean, I come from a Cuban family. For years, we fled oppression in Cuba. And the illegitimate government of Venezuela was the one feeding Cuba. So we feel that with this change, there will be change in Cuba too, and hopefully Nicaragua. I know many may not be in agreement with what happened, but I think it was very necessary for the safety and security of even the United States. This definitely put in jeopardy the security of the United States. So things were happening in our backyard that affected Americans. And so I did not see anything wrong with it other than they needed to go in there and rip out a dictator that was, causing a lot of harm to not just the people in his own country, but allowing for terrorist cells to grow that none of these people like the United States of America, and allowing them to be in our backyard without any control, I think was a threat to our national security.
Why do you think only Trump dared to do something against Maduro?
This isn't a country that's on the other side of the world. This isn't a country like we have to travel 24 hours in an airplane. This is Venezuela. It's in our area. The Don Road Doctrine.
Well, there's been many presidents before that have said they're going to do something, and there has been many legislators that have said that they've fought against it, but no one's actually taken the action to bring down this regime. What he did brought down the regime, or is in the process of, and there will be an opportunity for the Venezuelan people to choose their rightful leader in a democratic process and have rights restored to them that were taken away a long time ago. People lost everything. They've lost family members. There's absolutely no respect to human rights, no access to medicine, the basic needs. And so, many have said that they would negotiate, but they were all just talk. I think the action was necessary, and I'm very proud of our president for doing that, and our Secretary of State for having the political pants to go in there and do what needed to be done to protect the Western Hemisphere.
And we saw Democrats, as well as the new mayor of New York, Doral Mandani, who literally say that Trump's action was violating the international law. What do you think of that?
I think that's an ignorant statement. I think history has shown that this is not an illegal act, and there's much precedent to be able to take these actions in the name of national security. So I disagree wholeheartedly with them, and I think that those who make those statements don't have an understanding of not only our history as a nation, but also the president's executive powers to be able to make these decisions.
How do you explain the phenomenon across the Western nations where we see people taking to the street to protest not in favor of Venezuelans, but in favor of the dictator Nicolás Maduro. How do you explain that?
I mean, to me, it's shocking. I don't understand it at all. And what I would ask them is, why don't they ask themselves the question that why are the people in Venezuela out celebrating that this happened? I mean, this tells you these people were captive. You know, they talk about a kidnapper, that the United States is kidnapping the president. No, this person who was not a legitimate president or recognized as a president had kidnapped this country many years ago. So if anything, we have the United States has liberated them and is giving them an opportunity to actually choose through a democratic process their rightful leader, and which they should have the right to do. That's going to give them the opportunity to have resources and opportunity, which is all they want: safety, opportunity, and freedom. We take for granted so many times the freedoms we have in this country, and I can understand how some may talk about it that have never had to live oppression and a dictatorship, but talk to someone who has. Talk to my family who left Cuba, who left everything behind with just the clothes on their backs to come here and rebuild all over again. They didn't want to do that. They had no choice because they were suffering. They were literally going to go hungry if they didn't stay there. So I would ask those people to turn and look at the people in Venezuela that are being killed for going out and celebrating this, because they have been held kidnapped for so long. So I don't understand it. To me, it's unjustifiable. And that's, I would tell them to do a little more research before they go out and make ignorant comments and statements.
And what is the next for Cuba? Because there's so many Cubans that went out in the streets, has hope. Yeah. Do you think Cuba is next?
I do. I think that, first, we're living vicariously through the Venezuelan people because we wanted this for our country for so long. It's been 70 years of oppression in Cuba. I was actually born here. I'm a first-generation American from my family. But I've heard the stories that my grandparents have told for years. They left, 65 years ago and have never been able to go back. They lost family members they never got to say goodbye to. It's very sad to think about those things. I do believe Cuba could be next in a very different way. I don't think there's going to be military action or anything like that, but I think that the restructuring of Venezuela is going to dry up the economic resources that were being fed to Cuba by the Venezuelan government. And that is going to make that last leg fall. And I think it will allow pressures to be put for real change and for a real democratic election so that the people of Cuba can also have an opportunity to rebuild. This is the weakest the Cuban government has ever been. And it's because the Venezuelan resources have dried up to give to Cuba. So we do have to take advantage of this moment. And Trump made it very clear that this was the opportunity to do that as well, and they weren't going to stay behind. I don't think many dictators are going to be able to continue through the last 3 years of Trump, in those situations. And again, I think that especially in the Western Hemisphere that has been ignored for so long, the priority has been shifted because it does affect our national security. They've allowed new players to come into this region that are not friends of the United States, and I think that the president and our Secretary of State, who understands this issue very, very well, have their eyes on them.
Secretary Rubio mentioned Cuba yesterday in his remarks. Does the U.S. have a plan to do something?
Well, Cuba always survived because of Venezuela. Now they won't have that money coming in. They won't have the income coming in.
Knowing of what is happening in Venezuela, we know that there is terrorists over there, gangs.
Yes.
Do you think you would need a second strike?
I'm sorry, say what?
Do you think you would need another operation?
Look, I'm not going to pretend to have any understanding of the military actions that need to take place or the strategies that are being considered by the president or our military personnel. But they did say yesterday they were not opposed to that, and if they needed to take those actions, I think the president has taken a decisive step, and there's no turning back.
And people are so happy with what we've done. You go down to Miami, you go down to a lot of places. Yeah. And they're all dancing in the streets of this country. Now he was a rough man. Killed millions of people. He killed millions and millions of people.
In your own opinion, what would be the best person to govern Venezuela?
Look, I followed Maria Corina Machado closely. In 2014, I gave her a proclamation here that she came when she was still able to travel. I think she has the respect of the people. I think that people love her. She's extremely charismatic. I understand the president's comments yesterday on the strategy. You know, right now it'd be very difficult for her party to take over in this transition because they need the military support still. There's still a lot of moving pieces to this process that I think it would be very hard to just plug and play. A lot of her party and her support had to leave the country because they had to flee because of their safety. So I've listened to Marco Rubio very closely. I've listened to the president. I don't think that they have said in any moment that she's not capable of running the country and that she doesn't have the support of the people. I think that's very clear. She has the support of the people. They won the election in 2024 by 80% and possibly more. So I think you need to listen when they're speaking. No one has said that the people of Venezuela will not be able to choose their rightful president through a democratic process. Whether they engage in a new election and monitor that and are able to enforce the outcome of that election, I am pretty certain Maria Corina Machado will be the next president of Venezuela. Truthfully, she wasn't even going to be the president with the last elections. It would have been El Mundo because Maduro prohibited her from being the candidate for the party. So truthfully, those elections already were rigged from the moment they started. So if I was a citizen of that country, I would want a new election so that I could choose Maria Corina Machado, who has fought for the democratic process and the liberation of Venezuela. And I would hope that she does get the opportunity to be their president. And I am certain that if she's given that opportunity to be on a ballot, she will win.
Do you think Donald Trump qualified for the Nobel Peace Prize?
I think that he is definitely on the road to getting that, and he wants it because he is fighting for peace. I think he does deserve to be recognized as a president for peace.
Thank you so much. We traveled from Canada to Miami to be here on the ground to speak with Venezuelans themselves. We wanted to cover everything regarding the newly free Venezuela. But it's not cheap to travel here. We travel on a modest budget, but we need your help. If you want to contribute, go over our special website that is venezuelaisfree.com. Please chip in, and you can also catch up with our reports.